Christianity and politics. Over recent decades, particularly in the US, Christianity has become deeply entangled with politics. Many churches and Christian voices have aligned themselves with political parties and cultural agendas, so much so that for many Christianity becomes nearly synonymous with a political identity. But when we look at Jesus' life, we see that he refused to be co-opted by political movements. When asked whether to pay tax to Caesar, he replied, "Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's." Matthew 22:21. He recognized the authority of civil government, yet insisted that ultimate allegiance belongs to God. To understand how radical Jesus' posture was, we must remember the political expectations of first-century Jews. Under Roman occupation, many looked to the Messiah as a political liberator, a Davidic warrior king who would overthrow Rome, restore Israel's sovereignty, and re-establish God's rule on earth. Some even joined resistance movements, hoping for a military deliverer, but Jesus refused that pathway. When Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus replied, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight." John 18:36. He came not to seize power by force, but to inaugurate a kingdom of transformation, starting in the hearts of people. So the gospel is not a political platform. It is not tied to one party or one ideology. Yet paradoxically, it influences politics because it transforms people from the inside out. When a person is spiritually reborn, their values change. Justice, mercy, humility, care for the weak become central. That shift ripples into families, communities, and eventually society. One modern story captures this tension beautifully. The testimony of Erica Kirk after the assassination of her husband Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was a public and political figure known for blending Christian themes and activism. His widow Erica recently addressed a stadium of mourners. In that moment of deepest loss, she made a decision many would find impossible. She forgave the man accused of killing her husband. She said, "I forgive him because it was what Christ did, and it is what Charlie would do." Her words echoed Jesus' prayer on the cross, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Luke 23:34. She refused vengeance. She chose love. Against a backdrop of political turmoil and calls for punishment, Erica's forgiveness stood as a witness to the gospel's higher way. She declared, "The answer to hate is not hate, love for our enemies and love for those who persecute us." In her grief, she also said she did not want the killer's blood on her ledger. What makes her story so striking is that she did not simply offer forgiveness privately. She did so publicly in a politically charged environment, turning a moment of violence into a moment of gospel witness. That is an example of how Christians can engage the world without letting the world co-opt the gospel. So what can we learn and how can we live this tension? First, when we speak into political issues like abortion, same-sex marriage, or free speech, we anchor our voice in the gospel, not merely political policy. Every life is sacred because it is made in God's image, Genesis 1:27. The unborn matter, not simply because science says so, but because the Creator values them. Marriage matters not because of cultural stability, but because God designed it. And free expression matters because God honors truth. When our reasoning arises from the gospel, we can engage without bending to simplistic political slogans. Second, we reject the notion that Christians must choose a political agenda over gospel integrity. We don't have to win elections to be faithful. Instead, we must love our neighbours, serve the poor, defend the weak, speak truth, and trust God with outcomes. And third, we must live out forgiveness and mercy in daily life, not just in theory. Erica Kirk's forgiveness was shocking, but it was powerful precisely because it was gospel-shaped, deeply rooted in the cross. The world expects retaliation. We proclaim a higher way. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Romans 12:21. We follow Christ, who said, "Bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you." Luke 6:28. Fourth, we build communities where grace and truth coexist. Inside the church, we confess sin, forgive freely, hold one another accountable, speak the hard words, and offer healing. The church must model forgiveness better than anyone else. Fifth, we keep our eyes on the eternal kingdom. Our political engagement is transient, but the gospel is eternal. We are citizens of heaven, Philippians 3:20. When we render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, we act responsibly in society. But when we render unto God what is God's, we affirm that every system, every government, every policy is under his final reign. Erica Kirk's testimony demonstrates that the gospel still has power, even in the darkest moments. Her forgiveness, offered in public, under pressure, in grief, reminds us that Christianity, at its core, is a faith of reconciliation, not retaliation. She refused to allow her husband's legacy to be defined by vengeance. Instead, she pointed beyond politics to the cross. Christianity may, especially in the US, appear political, but the gospel is not captive to any political banner. It calls us higher. When Christ calls us to forgive our enemies, to love the unlovely, to lay down our rights, he is shaping a kingdom that transcends governments. Let us ask ourselves, in our local context, Australia, or wherever we are, how will we live differently? Will we allow the gospel to shape our politics rather than let politics shape our gospel? Will we be known by love, mercy, and forgiveness, even toward those who oppose us? And in doing that, may the world see not just a political ideology, but the living Christ at work in and through us. Written and produced by Chris Lovell.